Hey there, my fellow intellectuals. How are you doing today? Today, I wanted to tell you the story about the hardest challenge that I've had to overcome in graduate school. Now, the hardest challenge that I overcame was not a single test or some paper I had to write or anything of that nature. It was not just one singular event in time, but it was sort of a time period of my life in graduate school. And there's a specific reason as to why I'm doing it today, because that hardest challenge for me began on July 5th, 2018. So it's been officially, as of this video, 2 years to the date since that fateful day, essentially. Now, if you want to know in general what the hardest thing was, if I could put sort of a phrase to the challenge, it was essentially transitioning from being an academic student that is taking classes, doing homeworks, taking tests, and stuff of that nature that you would do as a normal student in a class, but transitioning from that into a full-time researcher, as in focusing solely on research. And it was that summer of 2018, where that switch occurred. I had just passed my qualifying exam, my written qualifying exam as a first-year graduate student at UC Irvine, and that meant that I had essentially passed the 4 exams that test you in classical mechanics, statistical mechanics, electromagnetism, and quantum mechanics as a graduate student. So I had passed those exams, I had shown proficiency in them, and I could move on to the research phase without too much trouble, or so I thought. That's where July 5th comes around. And on July 5th, 2018, I was playing basketball at the gym at UC Irvine, and I was essentially defending somebody who was much bigger than me. And I just remember feeling at one point this horrible sensation in my left leg and this popping sound. And I immediately fell to the ground. I couldn't really get back up. I needed help from both the gym staff and the people I was playing basketball with to get back on my feet. And I didn't really know what was wrong with me. I knew that I had done something terrible to my leg, but I didn't know what exactly it was. And so I limped home, went to bed. I took some medicine to sort of help with the pain. But then I went to the doctor's office the next day. They really couldn't give me a straight answer. They sort of said that it may have been a stretch of a ligament, maybe a slight partial tear, but that they didn't want to go with surgery yet, and we'll just sort of see how it is as time progresses, and that I should just take these crutches and just try and live a normal life with my crutches and just not, put too much strain on that leg. And so I remember for the next couple of weeks, it was just absolutely miserable for me because I had been on crutches before when I was younger, but to be on crutches now when I wasn't a full-time athlete, essentially, all the times I had been on crutches before, I was sort of playing sports in school. But now I was a graduate student. I was not trying to be the best student athlete out there. I was just playing basketball for fun, and I just totally hurt my leg in this really unknown way. And so it was just awful in the sense that I just didn't know what had happened to me. But I was told that it would get better with time. And so I tried to carry on, trying to do research, starting to try to do research because I was sort of thrown into this transition phase. I remember there was a meeting I had. There was a meeting I had between my advisor and his most recent PhD graduate student. So this person is essentially my predecessor. They got their PhD that year, and I was essentially learning from them, and they were about to leave to their postdoc position, and I was trying to just learn from them. And I remember we had a meeting, the three of us, and they sat me down. They sort of told me what my PhD project will be, what it will entail. It essentially is following what my predecessor had done and take what he had done and sort of take it to the next level. So essentially, he had written all these codes in a language known as IDL, which is a very common astronomy programming language that a lot of old-time astronomers use, and maybe some new timers. I don't want to discriminate here. But nowadays, astronomers have switched to Python for the most part, and that's what I use. And so my project was to essentially translate a lot of the old work that had been done in IDL and port it into Python, but also then expand upon it and apply it to more data sets. So essentially, the previous student had done, I think, 2 different galaxies that he had measured the black hole masses of And he had spent a good portion of his PhD writing up this stuff in IDL and testing it and making sure it worked. And now I was supposed to sort of recreate that in Python and take it to the next level. And so I remember sitting in that meeting and just feeling absolutely overwhelmed by everything they were saying. I remember the words, I wrote it down, I typed it all out, and I remember just thinking to myself, I am just totally in over my head. Like, how am I going to do this? Because I had sort of just recently transitioned into astronomy or astrophysics because as I said before in my long physics video that I have on my channel, it was like 50 minutes long, I essentially said that I had wanted to come here to do something else. I came to UC Irvine under the assumption I would be specializing in something else. It turns out I didn't really like it, and I switched into astrophysics essentially in that I'd say that spring. So it had only been about 2-3 months since I had officially switched into astrophysics. And here I was sort of in this meeting with two people who were brilliant and know way more than me and just trying to tell me what I should do. And they were sort of talking back and forth about what it would mean. And I was still sort of not totally processing everything they had said, because when you're sort of thrown into the lion's den of doing research, it can be very intimidating if you haven't read all the literature, if you haven't looked at the actual data, if you haven't just had experience with doing the kind of research you're expected to do. And I hadn't at the time. And so I was in this position where I felt that I really had to try and prove myself. I really felt here I am. I wanted to switch into astrophysics. Now I got to show them what I can do. And here I am also with a bad leg that I have absolutely no idea what's wrong with. What's wrong with it essentially. And it was just a very hard time. I just felt really stressed out because of my health and because of just sort of the insurmountable task that I saw in front of me, which was trying to do this PhD project that seemed so foreign to me. I mean, I never really even saw the IDL code. I knew what the code did. I had seen papers, I had read papers and looked at what the code had produced. And so I knew sort of the internal instructions of the code. I sort of saw the results of the code essentially, but I never saw the actual code itself. And I had to build something that would recreate it essentially and take it to another level. And so you can imagine being thrown in this position where you are physically hurt, but also challenged with a very intellectually difficult task. It's not easy to handle. And I didn't think it was easy to handle at the time. And I felt really, like I said, I felt really stressed out. And as time went on, as the weeks went on after that meeting, I was slowly getting a little bit more confident with moving my leg. I had been told by the doctor that I should exercise. I shouldn't just let it sort of atrophy over time. And I should do some minor exercises here and there. And about 3 weeks later, I think it was either 3 or maybe close to 3 or 3 to 4 weeks later, I went to the gym. I went on the sort of stationary bike because I was told that was a good exercise to do. And I was pedaling on the bike and I hear another pop. And it felt way, 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 way worse than the first pop, which was already the worst thing I had probably ever felt in my life. And that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. Had to limp away from the gym. Had to go to the emergency room. Had my girlfriend drive me to the ER, the emergency room, and get checked by a doctor. They said they couldn't really identify anything there either, but other than that I forgot what the actual diagnosis was, but they said it was all good, but I needed to go see a specialist for my leg. And I ended up going to see that specialist, and after taking MRIs, they were able to see that I had, yes, indeed, torn off a piece of my cartilage in my left knee, and that would require surgery to fix and heal and remove that torn cartilage. So I was going to have to get surgery. So my surgery was scheduled in late August of that year. So I had the injury on July 5th. I had the surgery in late August. That's over a month. Just imagine being a month on crutches, going almost a month on crutches, and then re-injuring and making the injury worse, and then realizing you have to get surgery to fix that injury now. And this is all happening while I'm still trying to sort of learn how to be a good graduate student researcher, like trying to learn how to, become an expert in the field that I've chosen to dedicate 5 years of my life plus, two, essentially five or more years of my life to. As you can imagine, it's not easy. It was not easy. And if I want to be honest with you guys, I really have a hard time remembering how I got through it all, because I remember just sort of thinking every day, just get me to the next day, get me to the next day. I can't wait till I'm better. I can't wait till I'm better. And it took a long time. It really took a long time. And I still feel the effects of that injury to this very day. Like, I don't feel as confident in my body as I did 2 years ago, which is kind of sad, but that's just sort of the truth of it. And I think that helped me sort of realize my limitations, I guess, a bit better, but in a very sort of morbid way. So again, how does this all tie back into the research? Well, okay. The thing is that I had the surgery in late August. Okay. Had the surgery. I remember actually, just not even getting to the operation room. I remember they had sort of, put me on some anesthetics, and I essentially passed out on the gurney on the way towards the operation room. I remember sort of looking over at the people who were wheeling me to the operation room, and then I woke up and I was in a bed. I actually have a picture of that. I'll put the picture in the video. There's a picture of me just like lying in the hospital bed, and I'm like, it's over already? Like, I had the surgery? What? I was just being wheeled over to the operation room. Yeah, anesthetics are a weird thing. So I had the surgery. It took about a month and a half afterwards from the initial injury to get it. And from then on, I had to go to physical therapy for the next year and a half, essentially. I mean, not a year and a half, maybe a year, effectively. So that whole next year, the whole next school year, I had to balance taking my second year courses in graduate school. I had to still be a productive researcher, and I had to go to physical therapy appointments for my leg. That was my life the next year. And I think in some ways that event, or that period of time, I should say, helped me develop a level of confidence, oddly enough, because that had sort of shattered my confidence in my body. And it sort of had to teach me how to retrain my body and retrain my leg and regain levels of confidence of doing things. But it also sort of helped me realize a very important fact in graduate school. And that is, your research isn't what defines you, and it's not your entire life. Because for those, 12 months of physical therapy, 12, maybe 13 months of physical therapy, research wasn't entirely my life. Yes, it was a big part of it. I'd say it was at least half of it, if not more. But the other portion of it was trying to get better, trying to recover, trying to have a healthy body again and be able to walk on two legs without the help of a crutch or a cane. So I think that whole process sort of helped me develop a work-life balance. And people always talk about work-life balance because, not being focused on your work all the time isn't necessarily healthy for you, and you should have time to not think about work. And I think just knowing myself, I had always sort of been kind of having workaholic tendencies. I could always work late into the night before. But having this injury really did force me to have a work-life balance, really made me think about my body and what it needed, and how to do exercises every day to get back into a functional form. And so that whole year I was sort of feeling guilty at times, thinking like, oh, I'm not doing enough research here because I'm always doing my physical therapy, but I have to do my physical therapy, right? And I think that was sort of the sad thing about it. It was like not sort of prioritizing my health over my research. And at some point after doing the physical therapy exercises for several months, I realized that, my health is essentially what's most important right now, and probably always, right? Because without you being healthy, you really can't do a lot of other things. So thinking about my health and focusing on my health really opened my eyes to seeing that even as a graduate student, even in one of the most research intensive periods of your entire life as an academic, there is still time for other things, and that research doesn't always have to be the most important thing in your life. And I don't want to spend too long talking about all the different months and all the different exercises I had to do. That's not really relevant. What I did want to say is that from those months between July of 2018 to I think May 2019, I'd say that was sort of the stretch of time that was the most difficult doing research, because obviously I was hurt and I was still going to physical therapy. And even into the year afterwards, right, I was still in physical therapy. But the thing is, in May of 2019, something amazing happened. And in May 2019, I had essentially gotten my code that's essentially supposed to recreate what my predecessor had done in IDL. And I had essentially gotten my code to reproduce a result that was in a paper that my predecessor wrote. So my predecessor had written a paper. It was on a black hole mass measurement. You can see it. I can put the link in the archive too if you want, or in the description. Sorry, it's on archive, but it'll be in the description here. But my predecessor, like I said, had written a paper, black hole mass measurement, and the code was in IDL. And I had gotten my code to the point where it could essentially reproduce the results in that paper with the same data set and the same inputs to the program I had written as he had input into his program. So when I saw the outputs of those results, when I was looking at the work of 10 months, imagine coding something for 10 months, refining it, editing it, deleting stuff, cleaning it up, and doing it all over again because you did something wrong. Imagine actually seeing the output saying that, yes, your program is actually reproducing a scientific result that is in a published journal from, that was written by your predecessor and your PhD advisor. That was one of the most exhilarating feelings I had ever felt in my entire life. I had felt doubt before. I had felt worry. I had felt concern. I had felt that if I couldn't get this code to work, my PhD is toast, because my whole PhD depends on me getting this code working. And I had spent 10 months from July of 2018, since I had the injury, up until May 2019, July 2018 to May 2019, trying to get this code while trying to balance my health at the same time, during every day, essentially, just trying to get this code to do anything that resembled the code that my predecessor had written. And when I saw those outputs, I just felt like liberated. I felt that I had proven I can do it, that this was the first really hard thing I had to do in graduate school. And I needed to do this to do anything else, really, because that code now has essentially become that's my bread and butter. That is the thing that lets me do the research I do today. I run that code. I've been running that code since May 2019 on 2 different galaxies to look at their black hole masses and test different models I've had. That was the first thing that enabled me to get to the point where I am now. And now I don't even really think about that code too much, because it's sort of, I know it so well and I use it all the time. But that whole stretch of time between May 2018 to July 2019, I mixed that up. Sorry. July 2018 to May 2019. I was unsure if it would work. Being honest, I was unsure. But that was huge for me. That was absolutely huge for me. And I was able to do it while injured. And I think if I had to look back and sort of assess my mindset at the time, it's really hard for me to remember, because I think it was a very, just let's be honest, traumatic process for me. And I've had a hard time making this video because I've had to sort of remember a lot of things I didn't really want to remember, and have to sort of piece together the story again in my mind during a time period where I really just wanted to block a lot of things out and just sort of get through it without thinking about it too much. And so, if anything, I know this has been sort of a long video and I've sort of gone a lot of sort of different directions, but if you take away anything from this video, it's 1, don't play basketball after leg day at the gym. That's one thing. Second, remember that as a graduate student, you have a life. You have other priorities other than just your research. Yes, your research is important. Yes, it is what you have to do to earn your living. But remember that there are other important things in your life. And I think when you realize that, and you realize that research isn't all there is to being a graduate student, that takes you off a lot of pressure. At least it did for me. It took off a lot of pressure on me because I felt like I need to be healthy to do good research. There's no other way to do good research essentially without being healthy in mind and being healthy in body. And I really felt that stretch of time between May and July exemplified that for me. It really did. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of long, and I am just so happy that I am where I am now, that I am a PhD candidate of physics at the University of California, Irvine. I have a healthy body again. I can walk. I can run again. It feels like a huge relief, and I just never thought I'd see myself at this point, honestly. If you asked me 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I couldn't imagine myself being here making this video. So it feels really good. Thank you guys again for all your support. I really just enjoy making these videos for you guys, and I like sort of seeing your guys' responses to these videos. They're really encouraging. I think we're really getting to know each other well, aren't we, in this video, and to the past videos I made. But yeah, just thank you guys so much. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and I will wish you guys a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks, guys.